Joining me now, CNN political commentators, Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican consultant John Thomas. Okay, so, we've heard that, we've just had that reporting there from Axios about the president. Apparently, this is his moment. Dave, when he was first elected, Donald Trump thought he actually might bring peace to the Middle East, but that's just really hard. So that he's given up on that, apparently, and now it's all about solving the North Korea problem. But here's the thing. When Jimmy Carter negotiated a peace deal between Egypt and Israel, Jimmy Carter was deeply invested and knew the people of the region. He knew the history, he knew the facts, and he was committed to that. He knew everything about it. When Bill Clinton negotiated a peace treaty between Israel and the Jordanians, it was the same thing. These are people who know history and who know the region. They didn't go there and wing it.
Right, absolutely. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher because President Trump has presented himself as this ultimate deal maker that only he can get a deal done. He doesn't have a real sitting Secretary of State. Pompeo is still going through Senate confirmation. He doesn't have an ambassador.
He may not be confirmed, Pompeo.
Precisely. And so the stakes couldn't be higher for the president, and that's his own fault. He set up this expectations game that only he can deliver. So if he goes and he has this meeting, he elevates the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to sit with the sitting U.S. president, and he fails to get anything done, that is going to be a massive body blow to his foreign policy agenda, and it's going to reflect a very weak President Donald Trump, both domestically and abroad. And the other issue is, if he is going in with the deal, we don't know what he's willing to give up, John. Like, is he willing to pull U.S. troops off of the demilitarized zone? Is he willing to perhaps modify our alliance with South Korea or Japan? Like, what is he willing to give up? Honestly, I don't think that Kim Jong-un is going to cut a deal with just he makes concessions and we don't, right? So at the end of the day, the question is, what does the deal look like? And no one knows because there's no experts involved in this.
Yeah, the table has not been laid before we get to the meal. Right. So John, the motivation, I guess, is it important here? Because there is a feeling that, Donald Trump is doing this for the headline rather than for the result.
I think every politician would do this for the headline.
Well, John Kerry certainly in the Mideast piece.
They're politicians, so there's always a PR benefit to this.
Seems a little more lopsided.
But also, President Trump understands that the rhetoric and the situation was so escalating with North Korea that the fact that he was able to is likely
he was the one escalating it.
Well, but the risk and the threat from the region was escalating way before Trump ever took office. But you're saying that Trump's unprepared. While he's not a foreign policy longtime expert, you look at the team that he's assembling from John Bolton. These are people who know their stuff.
They're also warmongers.
Well, but they're not people to get bossed around. They're not people to get taken advantage of by Kim Jong-un.
When the guy with the nickname Mad Dog is the moderate amongst them, I think you've got something to worry about, right?
No, or you come in with a real position of leverage and strength in negotiation because Trump looks like the moderate compared to all the people standing behind him.
Compared to John Bolton, absolutely.
So I think the president actually is coming this at the right perspective, which is thinking big picture like a CEO. And then that's why it's important we get Pompeo confirmed. And the fact that Democrats are blocking this confirmation is weakening the U.S.'s ability to perhaps strike a good deal with North Korea.
Maybe it's not because Pompeo went over and met with Kim Jong-un over Easter.
Right,
and so clearly it's not an impediment, right?
No, it is, because he's not in his official position.
Okay, we mentioned Mideast peace. That was something else which Jared Kushner was meant to get done but didn't. This is the president's son-in-law and advisor. Ronan Farrow at The New Yorker has an interesting report about the demise and departure of Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. Apparently he believes it was Kushner who was stoking the rumors about his demise and bringing it about sooner rather than later. Here's part of his report. When I mentioned the White House's role in the escalating rumors of his demise, Tillerson appeared to have been waiting for the question. Tillerson leaned in, and for a moment I realized that it must be unpleasant to be fired by him. I know who it is. I know who it is. And they know I know. Dave, every White House has backstabbing and office politics and ego clashes, regardless if they're Republican or Democrats. The Trump administration, though, seems to be in a league of its own.
It's unprecedented. And I think the dysfunction is unhealthy. You have a president who has empowered somebody with no foreign policy skills to broker a peace deal in the Middle East with Jared Kushner. And then you have Not that I'm a fan of his. I'm not a big oil person, but you know, an Exxon Mobil CEO who has made big global deals all across the world, has relationships with world leaders, undercut by a young man who has never done any international deal, who has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
And time again, right? Jared Kushner was reported, you know, went out into the Middle East, didn't even notify the State Department. Rex Tillerson. I mean, we had these stories leak out over the last year and a half, and it undercut the Secretary of State and diminished that office tremendously.
I've never been a fan of nepotism. I don't think it's healthy for any administration, whether it's the Kennedys or whatnot. And the Javanka grip on the White House has been nothing but, I think, a conflict of interest and causing these spats. And then you add in other people like Steve Bannon. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Well, and it still isn't sorted out, and we're a year and a half in almost. Okay, this brings us to the fired FBI Director James Comey. The Department of Justice has handed over 15 pages of Comey's memos to Congress. For the most part, they confirm what has already been reported. Here's what he wrote about the conversation he had with the President about former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. He then returned to the topic of Mike Flynn, saying that Flynn is a good guy and he's been through a lot. He misled the Vice President, but he didn't do anything wrong in the call. He said, I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go. I replied by saying, I agree, he is a good guy, but said no more. You know, Dave, it is notable when you go through these memos, through these pages, and the Republicans have pointed this out. Comey makes no note that he feels like he's being threatened by the President. He feels like he's being instructed by the President. Does that actually matter?
I'm not an attorney, but I don't think it does. And to me, that sounds like, I mean, we'll see what Bob Mueller ultimately comes up with. Clearly, he was able to put the squeeze on Michael Flynn and get him to flip. But to me, that looks like obstruction of justice. I mean, it looks like he's trying to, you know, impact in some way an ongoing investigation. And that's not something the President of the United States should do.
Okay, sorry, we'll get to you in a second, John, because here's another highlight from those memos. The President said the hooker thing is nonsense. But Putin had told him, we have some of the most beautiful hookers in the world. The conversation, which was pleasant at all times, was chaotic, with topics touched left and then returned to later, making it very difficult to recount in a linear fashion. Earlier, Comey was interviewed by Jake Tapper on CNN. They talked about Trump and the possibility that he had been compromised by the Russians.
There's a reason I say it's possible. Two things struck me. One, the president's constantly bringing it up with me to deny it. And in my experience as an investigator, it's not an ironclad rule, but it's a striking thing when someone constantly brings up something to deny that you didn't ask about. And then second, I've always been struck in my encounters with him that he wouldn't criticize Vladimir Putin even in private, which struck me as odd.
What do you make of it?
I look at a disgruntled employee trying to sell books, but I think in the memos that were leaked, there's also an important line as it relates to the kind of the Russians having the goods on him. They both share similar stories about Donald Trump says repeatedly the year 2013, which sounds like it was a trip he had to Russia, and then Trump said, do you think I could have been surveilled? And Comey basically says, it's very possible, and Trump says, yeah, I always assume my rooms were wired whenever I travel. Is a guy who makes the assumption that he's under surveillance, is he taking golden showers and gifts from Vladimir Putin? And the idea of saying that Russian hookers are beautiful, yeah, Putin probably did say that because his wife is Eastern European, right? He has a flavor. I didn't say she's that,
Okay.
but he likes Eastern European women. I mean, it's clear.
I think let's probably leave it there. Okay, let's move on. But last...
Are we in
Moving
Eastern
on.
Europe?
Sorry, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Okay, as the President is contemplating going down in history as the greatest peacemaker of all time by solving the North Korea crisis, at the same time he's furious about the legal trouble facing his personal lawyer Michael Cohen.
Mr. President, could Michael Cohen flip? Are you worried he's not loyal?
Thank you, everybody. I hope you saw the crowds in Key West. They've never seen anything like that. It was really very inspirational.
The crowds were huge. Okay, privately, those close to the president are apparently worried that Cohen will, in fact, flip. When anybody is faced with spending a long time in jail, they start to reevaluate their priorities, and cooperation can't be ruled out. One Trump ally who knows Cohen told Politico. Dave, what is interesting about this conversation about Cohen and Donald Trump, no one is arguing if they've done anything wrong or if they're innocent or if they're guilty. It's all about will he or will he flip? It's all about will Cohen go home and
Spill the goods.
Exactly.
Yeah, part of that is because he hasn't really been an attorney. He's been known as the fixer. He solves problems. And the question is, how loyal is he to President Trump? We saw that the president pardoned Scooter Libby the other day, potentially sending a smoke signal to Michael Cohen, hey, if you play this game, I'll take care of you, don't worry about it. I guess the larger issue, and again, I'm not an attorney or somebody with a law enforcement background, but what is the potential sentence? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? Or is it a lifetime? Is it 20 plus years? Because I think that is going to have a
sounded
massive...
like 20 plus.
And that's going to have a massive impact, I think, on his calculation, like whether or not I'm willing to flip. We've seen Michael Flynn flip. We've seen a number of others, Rick Gates. And so...
George Papadopoulos.
Right. So I think it's plausible that Cohen does flip if the FBI does have the goods on him. The question is, what did they find?
But the argument is that they've got to have something, otherwise they wouldn't have got the warrant to search his office, his home, and his apartment.
I think this is just Trump being a disciplined politician going, why am I going to speak about something to just inflame the situation? Let's see how it plays out. I guarantee you the president is focusing on this issue behind closed doors.
On Cohen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. He called him on the Friday when the raid happened, which was probably one of the silliest things to do.
And they had like dinner a week ago.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll see how the Cohen thing evolves. I mean, I think the idea of the pardon is interesting, but...
It must be difficult to focus on North Korea when you know that the guy who knows everything, where all the bodies are buried, could be about to talk to prosecutors.
I'm sure it is. You know, I've read stories about how, Nixon, when he was facing his challenges, and Clinton, when he was facing his challenges, that's all you can focus on. It makes it very difficult to get anything else done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Dave and Sean, thank you.
Thanks,
Good to see you both.